All right. Hope everyone is enjoying the sunshine. And give everybody just a moment to get settled, but welcome everyone to this March session of Clinical Research Connections. I hope everybody is enjoying the sunshine today, and as we always do, I will go ahead and start us off with a poll as everyone gets settled. So I'll go ahead and ask, what is your role in our research community? And just to go over the agenda today, while everyone is answering that, we will have Jama Bettis speaking to us about some updates for the Research Recruitment Office. Diane Ladell is going to be speaking to us about the Office of Research Development and Strategy. And Erin Sandene will be speaking about the Children's Hospital Research Enterprise. All right. Looks like we have a pretty diverse representation, plenty of folks from clinical research administration, both department and central, some folks from regulatory and folks in the coordinator world, and even somebody from finance. Excellent. And I will also go ahead and ask you very quickly how long you have been with us here at the university. And I think usually when we launch this poll, we see a strong distribution towards 5+ years, which always makes me happy that the university is being able to retain good folks. And it looks like today is no different. Over half of our attendees today have been with the university for 5 or more years. Excellent. All right, well, I will go ahead and pass it off to our first speaker. Jama, why don't you take it away? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jama Bettis. I am the project manager for the Clinical Research Recruitment Program, which is a relatively new program in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research. So I wanted to share a little bit of information about our program, as well as some resources and services, and answer any questions that you all have today. So first, I wanted to start by sharing my screen and showing you our website. All right, can you guys see my screen? Perfect, thank you. So this is our recruitment page. I will drop the link in the chat, but you can also find it pretty easily on Google with some keywords like CU Anschutz Clinical Research Recruitment. So we have a lot of different information on our page. We are constantly evolving and trying to share the latest information and resources that we can. So up here, we have some different services and resources listed. And then towards the bottom of the page, we have some information about the fundamentals of recruitment and recruitment guidance generally. So today, I really wanted to draw your attention to a couple of our services. So one of those is recruitment consultations. This is a service that we launched back in December, and we've completed 15 consultations so far with different groups across campus at various points in the recruitment process with various levels of experience, various sizes of teams, different topics, disciplines. So we are happy to meet with you regardless of where you are in your study or what your study is about. We have our team meet and review all of your information ahead of time and to really tailor each of the consultation meetings to the specific goals and needs of that study team. So if that's something you're interested in, this Learn More button will link you to our intake form, and then we will be in touch to set up the consultation with you. Another service that we have launched are paid social media campaigns that we can help create, develop, and manage for you. So this is a service that was a very long time in the making. We worked extensively with a lot of fantastic partners in the Office of Communications, Regulatory Compliance, so many different wonderful groups to really hone and improve our social media campaign skills before we launch this as a service widely available. I will say we have actually gotten a lot of requests lately, so if this is something you're interested in, I would advise you to think ahead and submit an intake form early. We also have more information if you click this Learn More button if you're interested. It will load. There we go. More information about social media campaigns generally, different options, including free and paid options. And then if you're interested in our service, we have a link here to our intake form. And then one last thing I would like to draw your attention to before I pass it off to our other fantastic speakers. We do also have quarterly recruitment workshops. So if you have missed these in the past, if you go to our website and click this tab, you can see recordings of some of the previous workshops, as well as the PDFs of the PowerPoint presentations. And our next recruitment workshop will be on May 15th. We will be distributing more information soon, but we are looking forward to it. So I will stop sharing my screen now and I will drop this link in the chat and I am happy to answer any questions. And if you think of questions later, I will put my email in the chat. Please feel free to email me as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jama. I really appreciate you sharing that. And if anybody thinks of questions later on, please feel free to ask. We'll also keep an eye on the meeting chat if anybody wants to share a question there. But thank you so much for sharing those updates and resources. I appreciate that. So now I will pass it over to our next speaker, Diane Ladell, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships for the Office of Research, Development, and Strategy. Diane, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jama and Erin, for having us here. I'm excited to talk about this and take any questions. As she said, and Jama's going to share the slides for me, which is awesome. Thank you so much. As she said, my name's Diane Ladell. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Program Director here at Anschutz in our new central office. Next slide, please. This new central office came about in September 2022. And so it's about 1.5 years old. And so you'll see research, development, and strategies throughout the schools and colleges, at the hospitals, definitely. But this is different in the sense that it's central. And so we are able to do a more holistic approach in some of these methods as we look out for strategy. Our main goal here is to grow and enhance the CU Anschutz research portfolio. We're building relationships with federally funded agencies or those federal agencies. We're building collaborations and partnerships, and that's my personal role. My area of focus is that collaboration and those partnerships. We've definitely seen team science take off in the last 10, 15 years for sure. And it's not easy to do team science. And so you have to build those collaborations and partnerships and have a strategy going forward. Looking for opportunities, seeking out those opportunities, and then driving alignment between Anschutz and those funding agencies, and also our partners, which could be our hospital partners, could be our CU system partners, like CU Boulder, Colorado Springs, downtown. Next slide, please. So here is a illustration with 3 pillars, and this is how we think about it in the office. We have intramural funding, strategic partnerships, that's me, and extramural funding. And then in each one of these pillars, we have things like everyone, or a lot of you probably know, Aspire, AB Nexus, ARPA-H spokes, which I can go into ARPA-H a little more, and RD Communications really lives in this internal pillar. And then in strategic partnerships, like I said, we're looking at our own schools and colleges and how we can be collaborative on our own campus, within our own campus, and then outside to the other 3 campuses, industry, academic partners, and then federal and foundation. And I should say that we are working closely with CU Innovations. So when we think about industry, we often think about CU Innovations. We are working with them in this area. And then the third pillar is this extramural funding. So that's limited submissions, capture management, which really is opportunity management, federal landscaping, DoD, so Department of Defense, and ARPA-H are some new mechanisms that we're really digging into. And this is all for those cross-cutting themes. You can see at the top that we want those research synergies to be strategic in nature, and that we can set ourselves up for success here at Anschutz. Next slide, please. So this is our team: Laura Buccini, Jamie Kuttner, that's me, and Erin Calhoun. So we're a small but mighty team right now at the moment, but we all take one of those pillars, but we all work very closely. So you can reach out to any of us if you have questions, or we can get you to the right person. Next slide. So I talked about this a little bit, but how do you strategize? And well, one strategy, big strategy, is you diversify your funding. This helps with risk mitigation, financial stability. You can become more competitive. You address the stakeholders' needs here at Anschutz, increase visibility and impact. You know, there's NIH, but then there's also ARPA-H popping up. And so if we can find ourselves in these other pockets, NIH is obviously our biggest, and it will remain that way, but we're exploring other avenues. So, and we follow those shifting priorities. So we might see that DoD is working on climate science, or they're working on, what was the latest thing? Some Arctic and cold weather science, or CU Boulder's trying to send, you know, doctors to the moon, or assess these things with NASA. So we shift to those priorities, but you have to watch those priorities to be able to assess them. And then there's that federal alignment. So whatever's happening in the federal landscape with funding, we want to align with that. So that's broadening expertise if we need to, and embracing any collaborative opportunities we can to be in better alignment. Next slide, please. So like I said, ARPA-H, and I always say ARPA-H, and I forget that not everyone knows the acronym, but it's Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. So if anybody on this call is familiar with DARPA, it's a similar model. It was based off of DARPA, and it has been around, they just turned 2. So we have, and they give out they don't give out grants, they put out contracts. So there's actually an active contract here at Anschutz right now, and a few others in the works that we're hopeful about. So keep your eye out on that, but they do announcements and they move really quickly. But we are trying to communicate those in our newsletters. And then of course we have the NIH, and then CDMRP, which is the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. So those are some of our focus areas for the next year. Next slide, please. So when you look at NIH funding, you can see that it has stayed pretty flat. This is adjusted for inflation. And so it's one of the reasons why we do look at other areas, so that NIH will always be holding strong, likely, but we do have to look at different areas. So that's just a visual for those of you that are visual learners. I like that graph. Next slide, please. So this one shows by I&C, so institutes and centers of team science mechanisms. And so if an investigator or a team you're working on usually goes for NCI funding, you can take a look and you can strategize here and see what kind of funding is going on. And sometimes people can shift over to other institutes or other centers and see where their funding might be aligned. So we're always open to dive into this with people if they'd like to look at the landscape, which we renew every year when the data comes out. Next slide, please. So this is success rates by R01, and you could go into this and you could see what's your denominator, what are the applications awarded, what are the success rates, and this is just another way where knowledge is power, and you can adjust if you need to based on what your research is in or what your team is working on. Next slide, please.
Hey, Diane, for that slide, is that the applications that have been received nationally?
Yes, I believe so. So that is not just Anschutz, that's nationally.
Okay.
And happy to, and Laura's really the expert in this area, and she could explain that in more detail, but yes. And I mean, we could, I believe we've done just Anschutz, and if a department or a group on campus is interested in looking at just theirs, we can do that. So we would just work with Amy Gannon and Grants and Contracts and try to pull that information for groups. So I've mostly gone over all of this, but we can do strategy consultations, we can liaison to socialize your group's research. We just need to sit down and realign strategy. And we do this from a holistic standpoint for the whole campus, and we try to convey this information, but sometimes it might be an individual that would like to sit down with us. Next slide, please. So as I talked about, ARPA-H is new, but we already have an award and hopefully more awards contracts coming down. We're also part of the Investor Catalyst Hub and the Customer Experience Hub and the Investor Catalyst Hub. So these are part of ARPA-H, but they're separate, and they're ways we can work with these groups as a member to convey what we're doing and apply for some of these research projects that are only available to these hubs. In the future, and might be interesting to this group for clinical research will be run out of one of these hubs, and that would help with recruitment. So they would say, come and bring your ARPA-H project. We're going to fund it. And after year 4, we're going to run your clinical trial, and we're going to run it through these hubs. The hubs are all over the US, or these spokes, as they call them. If they're all over the US and they have patient populations that can be recruited into the ARPA-H study that you designed, it's just shifting this model. And so more to come on these 2 hubs. They've just launched. I don't have tons of opportunity, but it will build this ecosystem, a coordinated ecosystem across the US. So that's kind of that health ecosystem. Proposers Day, ARPA-H hosts Proposers Day before you apply to a program. And so we are helping with that as our office. We can help fund your travel to these Proposers Days. Immersive experiences, we've had some opportunities to pitch immersive experience where ARPA-H would come out to CU Anschutz, and we could provide them with an experience where they could learn more about what's going on at this campus. And then again, the strategy consult. So if you were coming to us with an idea and you said, is this big enough for ARPA-H? A big thing about ARPA-H, we like to remind people it's health solutions for all. So you'll see these very broad projects that they want them to touch every single American. They, that's not always possible, but as big populations. So that's one thing we push for ARPA-H. Next slide, please. Oh, and then that's okay. The Defense Connect initiative is going on, and that's Jamie in my office who's leading on that. So we're just working with Combat, which you might know the group, or you might be from Combat in this group on this call, but doing more in the DoD space. Next slide. So again, we're looking at the analytics, we're looking at the data, we're looking at our capabilities as a campus, and then we're moving on to where we should be in these programs and initiatives. So it's this alignment across the board. Next slide. And so here's an example of federal funding. I did mention climate health, but we saw a jump in the federal landscape funding in climate health. Climate health started low, but we did see like a 30% jump from one year to the next. And so we said, oh, let's put some money and some initiative and strategy behind climate health. We made it a program in AB Nexus. We have done some teaming events with Boulder. And we're just on a lookout for those funding opportunities because we see that jump in the federal landscape. So then we want to convey that to our campus here to let people know this is a hot topic. Another one is AI and quantum science and human health. So we've also integrated that into the AB Nexus program, which is Anschutz Boulder. We've done teaming events. Last December, we hosted an event with about 100 participants. We have industry partners. Last month, I went and met with a company called Atom Computing. And this group is in the quantum space in Boulder, and we were able to bring 6 of our faculty members to meet with this quantum group and have discussions. And so that's a good example of how we can bridge and make partnerships strategically when we know that quantum's coming in quick. It's going to hit the federal landscape soon. We're going to see funding dollars allocated for quantum. We want to make sure that Anschutz ready to go in that space. And so we're doing some leg work beforehand. So again, we'll have the tech hub. Oh, the tech hub's another thing. The Economic Development Authority, EDA, put out a funding opportunity that we're part of as CU Anschutz, and that is also quantum related, and we're waiting to hear on that. It'll come in June. Talking really fast, but just we're looking for these things, and then we're helping our campus here get ready for these opportunities. And then team science, like I mentioned earlier, AB Nexus, Aspire. Now we have the Anschutz initiative as well funded. So we will work with these teams to bolster up their team science, because we know team science is hard to do. Next slide. So resources and communications. As everyone knows, we're limited to what we can send out, but you'll see that we have a new website, Office for Research and Development and Strategy. We have these funding foci coming out. ARPA-H alerts, we try to get those out quick because everything turns around so quickly. So visit our website, look out for these emails, and as always, we're available too by email. Next slide. So we have email addresses, everybody's name there. And please reach out if you have any questions. That was a lot. It was high level, but I hope you took away a new fun fact or two. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate the graphs. It's interesting to see the funding over time. Any questions related to the Office of Research, Development, and Strategy, their resources?
Diane, I know this is super new, but Biden just signed a bill yesterday increasing the amount of funding going to women's health research. And so I wondered, were you guys kind of pivoting and showcasing that? And I just think the connection between women's health funding and child health research funding sometimes aligns. And so is there a way for us to get more information when you guys have more information?
Yeah, thank you, Erin, for that question. That's a great example. So that did come out yesterday. We saw that. And we also have the ARPA-H project that just came out. That's all women's health. So what we do with that information is we've pushed some things out on women's health. And then since that came out yesterday, we should be able to push that out too. So if somebody was interested in something like that that's happening in the federal landscape, one, we're going to probably make it part of our portfolio when we move forward for the next year, right? We did climate and quantum, and now it's like, wow, women's health is really coming up here. We need to shift. So we'll probably add, no promises, but it's probably something, if it's getting that much attention, we're going to add it into our portfolio. in some way, shape, or form. But also, yeah, we can dig on that information, and or we can meet with you and say, oh, how would you want to strategize? So that's a perfect example of how we would gather around strategy when something like that's coming out of the federal landscape.
Great, thank you. Awesome.
All right, if there are no other questions, we will go ahead and move on. And Erin, I will call you back to the floor. Thank you for asking that question. And now I'll turn it over to you to talk about the Child Health Research Enterprise.
Sure. Let me first make sure I'm sharing the appropriate thing. So let me see. Do you guys see slides?
I see your notes view of the slides.
Let's not do that then. Hold on. Let's see. I think it's probably because, let's see again. Let's just go from here. I think something happens within the connection, so I think I'm just going to have to do it from this screen, unfortunately, because of the way my settings are set up. So try to ignore what's on the other side and focus on the presentation. I'm Erin Sandene. I'm the Director of Research Ops and Administration and now Education at Children's Hospital of Colorado. And I'm here today just to give high-level overview of kind of what our landscape looks like. And answer any questions. It's super, super high level, very casual conversation. So please feel free to interrupt at any time. And I will be happily answer your questions. So here you go. Can you guys see those slides?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So little overview here. This is kind of, and people ask about child health research as a whole. I wanted to give a summary of where we are in the landscape at Children's Hospital and with our partners at CU. And what's really interesting, I've been here in this role now 5 years, but I've been here a total of 10 years in October. And we have just continued to accrue funding and continue to have PIs that are receiving funding and doing work at Children's and at CU to the point where we are now the #2 funded Department of Pediatrics in the country. And we're right underneath Duke, and Duke actually received a super large kind of central grant for some COVID work. And so if you kind of parse it out, we're actually super well funded. And between both the Department of Pediatrics and Children's Colorado, which we take, foundation grants, other different types of grants, we're at #8. And again, we're increasing every year. And I really wanted to point out that we've always increased, but in the last year, we had 35 PIs with over $1 million in funding, which is pretty substantial in the child health research enterprise landscape. Right now, we have 1,070 active clinical studies where patients are being enrolled and they're being seen in the children's infrastructure. And the children's infrastructure also has network of care sites. We do also have a Colorado Springs hospital where we're not performing clinical research. We are doing some data associated studies, but this is just visits that are occurring at some of our network of care sites all over Anschutz. 7,000 new enrollments last year. You see the 20,000 plus encounters. And something that is near and dear to my heart is that we have a total infrastructure now under the Child Health Research Enterprise of about 170 FTE. But in the last year alone, we have onboarded 68 new research team members. And that is just our research staff. That's not specifically faculty. So that's coordinators, research supervisors. We have a lead position now. I'll go into this more, but you can just say, we do have turnover sometimes in these positions, but we also have expanded exponentially. And I'll kind of reflect that when I go through the org chart in the next slides. So people often ask, what is, the infrastructure at Children's? And I want to stop and to let you know that not everyone who does research at Children's is under our umbrella, as we call it. Not everyone is under the Child Health Research Enterprise. There are multiple really high functioning teams, the Breathing Institute, endocrinology, some orthopedics and sports medicine outside of our infrastructure. They're doing incredible work. But our goal is to develop the standard operating procedures, the processes, and provide the support and resources to be doing research in the same way, and to mitigate barriers and remove barriers so people can actually get their work done. With that in mind, we've developed some basically strategic structures. And so we have a director of research business services who supports all of our financial capabilities, including our coverage analysis and our budgeting in partnership with the Department of Pediatrics, led by Eric Brewington. We have a very strong clinical research contracting team that is supporting the contracts that are negotiated here at Children's. The one caveat with all of our contracting for people that I don't know exactly is actually in the room is that again, CU employs our researchers, and then Children's typically employs our research staff, but our patients themselves and our families are under the Children's kind of purview. And so when it comes to data sharing, material transfer agreements, and contracts, sometimes we end up in a three-party contract. And so there's all sorts of caveats and nuances associated with research contracting. So we have a full program manager there. I lead the research ops and admin with my medical director liaison, which is Stan Seffler. I have two managers that support that group. And I'll show you the org chart for that in a second. We also have an incredible research informatics and data science team that's involved in all the informatics and analytics associated with our research infrastructure. And then we have the same function that I oversight within our cancer and blood disorder group and also regulatory affairs under Erin Mobley. And then we have a research strategy and administrative team that is led by our chief scientific officer, who also leads the CCTSI, which is Ron Sokol, and my boss, whose name is Janae Neiman, and she's our first vice president of research operations ever at Children's. And that position was put into place 3 years ago. And why I think it's so important is because we've never had a seat at the table for many conversations that are pertinent and important to research. And so it's just great that Janae has been appointed to that role and that she's supporting and really process improving on all our efforts. We also have a clinical research medical director and all our medical director counterparts. Darcy Thompson is our clinical research director, and Meg Macy, Jesse Davidson, and Stan Seffler support other types of work within the research infrastructure. What's important about this slide is to show that when we develop the Child Health Research Enterprise and what will be, I think, the Institute in the future, is that Jenna Hausman and John Riley have made this a priority. And so Janae directly reports to Jenna, and Ron reports to both Dean Riley and to Jenna Hausman. And so we have that direct connection. We have the appropriate resourcing. We have the ear of our CEO, and this is one of her priorities along with pediatric mental health. And so we have been able to grow and be able to appropriately resource this infrastructure. Now, previously within COVID, it's just been able, because we have Jenna and John on our side in these conversations, we've been able to do so much more. So we're incredibly grateful for that opportunity. Like I said, we have a research business services team under Eric Brewington, finance, startup, and our coverage analysis team. And this is where my operations team would start. And the reason I'm showing you this is just because I want you to know what we're doing, but also what we have the capability of adding to this infrastructure. Like I said, I have two managers, and underneath the two managers, we have a total of 11 service line of associated clinical research supervisors. And what we've done in this space is we've developed a kind of a clinical ladder for our research coordinators. And so we have a research assistant position, a research coordinator, a mid-level, which is called a research professional, a senior coordinator. And now we actually just developed a new position called the research program lead. And that is someone that's leading a multi-site protocol and or programmatic development for a specific group. And we have 4 of those positions posted. And so our goal is to really engage people, recruit people, train them, and then give them the opportunity to have a research career, possibly outside of the medical infrastructure. So our goal is just to kind of get people to be able to move up through the ranks and get more responsibility within the supervisor role, the manager role, to get that direct supervision experience, and then to stay at Children's and or hopefully at CU, just because we find our data integrity is so much better when we have people that are really associated with our mission, that have been here, that know the processes, and are really dedicated to the type of work that we do. We were able to articulate and develop a clinical research educator role. And so we have an inaugural position that was posted 2 summers ago. Julia Smith is in that position. She has about 9 years of clinical research experience. And what she is doing for our coordinators and our staff and what are called, our CU affiliates, is develop a 3-day onboarding training along with classes that you can take at any time, once a month, about the research infrastructure at Children's. And so if there's anyone that is a CU employee or a Children's employee, these classes can be, you can sign up for them anytime. Julia can also do one-off classes. We do a lot of just-in-time conversations as we see deficits and trends that we need to teach to. So our hope is that we expand that coordinator or that research educator role, that we have more than one research educator, especially we're trying to focus on developing a research educator role for our research faculty. So from there, I wanted to show you how expansive this is. And Haley has 5 clinical research supervisors, and then these in the blue are all the different coordinators underneath that team. So like I said, Haley has 5, Kendra has 6. And so when you kind of parse it all out, there's almost 70 coordinators. And at any given time, we also have a PRN coordinator that picks up projects as we need more support. We have 2 open positions for PRN, but at any different given time, I would say next week, there'll probably be more positions based upon the work that we have. We are growing exponentially. And if you toggle back to even this first group of coordinators here, these are all multidisciplinary positions. And so what has happened there is these are smaller research portfolios that have needed an overall supervisor to make sure people are trained appropriately, make sure the work is assigned, that everyone knows what they're doing, that everyone is held to high standards, that we have quality embedded, that they're connecting with our regulatory and finance team as a whole. So everyone has a supervisor, and it really takes the burden of supervision, the burden of training, the burden of research compliance off of the faculty. And that lives with these supervisors who have at least 3 years of clinical research experience. And they're just kind of like our Sherpas. They're the most important positions within our team, and they get the work done and really drive the strategy and the mission of those groups that they represent. Under the multi-groups, there's a multitude of different portfolios, but we also have PICU, hospitalists, allergy, cardiology, digestive health. It continues and continues, and we continue to pick up bigger groups of work as we grow. This has changed exponentially. I know Diane and I have known each other for 8 years now, and I know when Diane and when I started, there was only 12 total team members in this entire infrastructure, and now I said we had over 170. We also have a centralized regulatory team that's oversight by Erin Mobley, and then Amy Taylor, who everyone on campus knows Amy Taylor. She is an angel on earth, supports regulatory affairs, and then Barb Shepard is the clinical research manager for this CCBD team, which I will show you there. So now the Center for Cancer and Blood Disorders is all under one infrastructure, as is our bone marrow transplant team, which is new as of last summer. So again, we're just putting everyone, centralizing everyone, developing, documents, SOPs, policies that support everyone. And so there's a standardized practice, and there's a way to do things, and that everyone is aligned with how work is done and completed and documented within our systems. And it really allows people to focus on the work as opposed to figuring out the processes. I'm going to circle back to Michelle Rittenhouse, who supports our contracting team. In case there's ever any contracting questions, she's excellent, as are everyone on her team. We also have an administrative team, and these administrative team really supports all of our calendaring, all of our kind of scheduling. Madison directly supports a lot of Janae's initiatives, and Claire Brendel is our operations manager, who supports our summer internship program, but also our internal awards program. And Claire is also excellent and a great addition to our team. Sarah Dekine, again, these are all the different informatics and analytics positions that are available to support research. And one thing I wanted to point out, if there's people that are, involved in research, but are also looking for career trajectory, we have multiple people that were data or research assistants, data managers, research coordinators that ended up in some how supporting informatics or analytics using their research background. So it's another kind of career trajectory that you can take. Of most important is I wanted to just present so you have my name. If you're ever doing work at Children's or your faculty is doing work at Children's or you have any connection into child health research and you just need to get a hold of someone to get you to the right person, I think it's very important to either reach out to myself, my co-directors, Erin Mobley and Eric Brewington. We will get you to the right person. I think we do a disservice and people kind of struggle not knowing where to go. But just get them to us and we'll get them to the correct people. And we also have 2 major meetings that would be very helpful for people performing research within the CHCO infrastructure. One is our research education meeting, and that's run by our educator. And that's specifically for research staff or faculty that don't have support staff. And what it is how to do your research, how to do work at Children's Hospital, updates, how you document in our electronic health record, any trainings you might need, any trends, deficits, compliance changes, regulatory changes. That is all centrally taught within this research education meeting. We also have representatives from teams presenting best practices, really incredible work that they've done, so we can learn from each other within that meeting. And so if you ever would like to be added to that meeting, we're welcome to have anyone can come, or we invite anyone to participate, but Julia owns the meeting invite, and so she'd be happy to send that to you. The other meeting we have is a research operations meeting, which occurs every other month, and it's led by Erin, Eric, or myself, and that is for everyone with any aspect of research in their title or in the work that they perform. And that meeting is in person and also recorded, also has a Teams or a Zoom link. And that is where the source of truth for all updates in research, the how-tos, any changes from an ancillary service perspective, any changes in leadership roles, any changes on how things are done are shared from our designees within all the ancillary services at this meeting. And so, like I said, we record those meetings. We also post them on our SharePoint for reference, but it's really the source of truth for what's new, what's the update, and where you should be going for your ancillary services or resources representatives. At that meeting, we also share kind of a list of owners for all those ancillary services to make sure you're getting your needs met. We also do a Q&A for the last 10 or 15 minutes of those meetings to make sure everyone's getting the support they need, irregardless of where they perform work, whether it's under the CHRE, whether they're in an outside service, whether they're at a network of care site, wherever that might be. Our goal is to be able to support you and optimize your work and get you connected with the people that help you do your work most efficiently. The person who owns that meeting is Lisa Sanchez. She goes by Lisa, but her full name is Elizabeth, and please email her to be added to that invite. Again, it's an open meeting. We welcome anyone to come. We welcome questions, feedback at all times. We love to hear when things aren't working so we can make them better. Any barriers are where you are successful and how we could replicate processes if that's helpful. So that is all I have. Are there any questions? I don't know how many people this is relevant to, but I am always here for any support you need. And I really enjoy partnering with CU and UCH. And so anytime I can be of help, please reach out.
Thank you so much. From the chat, we have from Lori Romero, great presentation, Erin, very detailed and informative.
Thanks, Lori. She's another one of my, I think we've created this kind of like great group of people within the 3 different infrastructures that are here to support each other. And so I just know that I can always pick up the phone and we always find a solution. And so I really want to promote that kind of team science that Diane was talking about. Like, we're here to make it work. And so if there's questions, nothing is too big or small. We'll talk through it, and always happy to help. And thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation, Erin. I have to echo what Lori said as well. Any other questions from the group before we wrap up?
I'll just say great presentation, Erin. And yes, I think I was number 13 hired on the team a long time ago. So it's great to see the growth. What are the, reaching out to you is one way. What are other ways we can help you partner? Like you said, when we see something pop up in women's health or child health, what are some of the best ways to partner?
So I think we have a child health research enterprise newsletter, and Diane and Jama, I was going to reach out to you both. I think we do share information with CU to make sure our educational offerings, our, internal like awards that would pop up are shared. But I think we might need to create some sort of conversation where we are all working on the same page, where there's more central information sharing occurring. So, we can do that. We have, many conversations we meet with Lori, we meet with, Comer, we meet with all sorts of different people, but I think we should we should be more specific on the mechanism we use for communication. We have a CHRE newsletter. And so, I can share that with this team to share if anyone wants to sign up, which is much like the newsletter, letter that you guys put out. From Tom with all the updates, information, studies. And so, yes, it did come out this morning. You're right. So I think that is a great source of information. And we also have, and just, this is a little, I'm just letting everyone know, if you have a study we can share, we're happy to share it. We have a Friday newsletter. And so what we do in the Friday newsletter is we send that out, and it is information that anyone doing research under the CHRE might want to know, education offerings, open positions, studies that might be relevant to them, their family members, whatever that might be. We do kudos, accomplishments where people are published. And so those are 2 things that if you kind of just want to be in the know of what's going on at research, I would say the newsletter is more focused on that research staffing side. The Friday newsletter is on the staffing, and then the CHRE newsletter that comes out quarterly is probably for both, much higher level. So I can get information if anyone wants to be a part and get those. I really find it valuable when I get Tom's newsletter, and I think that connects in as a whole. But we have more to come as far as centralizing our research as a whole. So we'll start to work on that.
Excellent. Any other questions from the group? All right, well, thank you again to our speakers. We'll let everybody get a little bit of time back, but thank you again, Diane, Erin, and Jama. We really appreciate you joining us. Our next session of Clinical Research Connections will be on April 16th from 12 to 1 p.m. You can find the registration link for upcoming sessions, as well as the recordings of this session and other previous sessions on the CROSS website. I've just shared the link in the chat. And if you have any ideas for future topics, please email researchstudies@cuanschutz.edu with your suggestions. I'll share that email in the chat as well. So thank you again to our speakers and for everybody who joined us. We appreciate you taking the time to join Clinical Research Connections, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.